Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted brilliant change in your life, an amazing new year ahead, then do we have the 2018 show for you. Today I'll be talking with Dr. Michael Lennox, psychologist, dream expert, and astrologer. Today we'll be talking about the upcoming new year, why it's so special, what it means for your life, and how to use these energies today to create the future you desire. That plus we'll talk about the power of 88 days, Saturn and Sagittarius, Uranus and lightning flashes, bumping into furniture, the danger of thought vomit, what on earth is a daily astro alert, and what in the world does duct tape and a paperclip have to do with anything? Gotcha. So welcome to the show, Michael. Are you ready to shine?
You're killing me. First of all, you're reading my dailies, so thank you. Because you quoted a bunch of stuff from my daily astro alert. Yes, well, I'm delighted to be here, Michael. It's a pleasure always to talk to someone who is as enthusiastic about life and consciousness as I am. So yes, I'm ready.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So before we dive right into things, the last time I had you on the show was almost exactly 4 months ago. I've got to ask, how was your eclipse?
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful, intense and intentional. And, 2017 has been a year for me that just personally has been very much an upgrade of the instrument of my body. I like to say of my bodies, because there's not just one of them that I inhabit. And so the eclipse period for me was an opportunity to really go within and kind of explode how I experience the energy that's part of being embodied, which is sort of what I'm all about in my personal practice, is how to be in this tiny little, very dense, wildly uncomfortable body so that I might do what I'm here to do, which is help to inspire other people to awake to their oneness with this universe that invented us.
Woohoo! Woohoo! So what does that mean to go within and specifically during that time period? Because it also sounds like now is another time to be doing that as well.
Oh, absolutely. So for me, I'll answer that question in two ways. One is just for me personally. I have cultivated over many, many decades of working in various ways and styles of meditation, a relationship with my breath, my literal physical breath in my lungs, and a inner visual sort of, I guess most people would say, a kind of a third eye landscape that I perceive when my eyes are closed. And there's a direct connection in when I sit, which is right over there in that green chair. There's a direct connection for me between my breathing, sounds that I make, and the ever-increasing clarity of the field of vision behind my closed eyes. And when I get there, that is to say, when the breath has happened enough times and the sound has sort of helped me navigate the way my body needs to kind of switch into this place where the inner landscape of my vision is beautiful. It's light, it's swirly, it's mostly violet. I like to describe it as if you took the aurora borealis and you made it a circle instead of a horizontal field. You made it a circle and then you colored it violet. That's what I see when I meditate. It takes me between 10 and 20 minutes to get there. I get there every time without fail, and I do it every day without fail. And once I get there, the sensation is I am at the center of my being. That means my physical body, emotional body, mental body, spiritual body, and my consciousness, where my thought paradigm, the one that's, yakking at me all the time saying, oh, well, it's time to put on a sweater because it's cold, or that person's not as good as you, and all those other horrible thoughts of separation. And I get to that centered place, and then that voice is the voice I declare my life purpose with, my day's purpose with,
Mm-hmm.
and my intention to raise the vibration for all of humanity with everything that I do in that particular day. And boom, then I'm done. I'm ready to do my day.
Woohoo! What is the sound you are using?
Oh, really? You're going to ask me that?
How could I resist?
I have a real shame relationship to this because I'm a singer and I make beautiful sounds when I sing.
Mm-hmm.
And these are not beautiful sounds. They're sort of chirps and chips, and it's a combination of inner aspirated toning
Mm-hmm.
and outward aspirated toning. It's usually pretty high pitched. It's not pretty. It's awkward. It's kind of like if we in energetic consciousness are spherical in nature, like there's a little sphere and then another sphere and then another sphere and then another sphere. And all of those spheres, and there are like maybe 14 of them, are made of this sort of gossamer light. When we wake up, they're all crinkled. And so I have to inch my way into each layer.
Yeah.
And each layer has like a different pitch in sound, or the whole sphere has a different pitch in sound, where it's like low, high in one sort of like if I go around the sphere. So I'm using tones to unwrap. So I use sound to wind into these energetic bodies, and my body moves physically in the chair. I happen to have what we'd call maybe blessing / curse of being somatically connected to my energetic experience. So it is part of my physical body. I feel it in my throat and in my mouth and in all of my body. And so there's a lot of movement as well. And it's all based on two sounds from Jewish mysticism, the Ein and Sof. Ein and Sof. When Ein Sof is put together in Jewish mysticism, refers to the consciousness in the mind of God that occurred just before the Big Bang.
Wow.
So and this was something that was downloaded into me spontaneously about 15 years ago, at which point I looked it up and I was like, oh my God, it happened spontaneously. And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, this is a thing. And so I do, and I sometimes teach this in meditation workshops. I teach the Ein Sof breath, where the Ein is the inward aspiration and sort of like, and then the Sof is the outward. And both the Ein and the Sof sometimes gets mixed in with a little chirpy, tonal sounds that I wish were pretty, but aren't.
Fascinating. Maybe we'll double back. We get to do some sort of a meditation at the end. Maybe you'll feel inspired to take us on a little Ein Sof journey. It could be...
Maybe.
Could be very interesting. So now I will segue. We're talking about the new year. We're also going to talk about what's going on right now. What does this time period mean to you?
Isn't it crazy? It is crazy, but it's beautiful. I want to say this in advance of talking about next year, that we're going to start with now, December of 2017. And we might not even get to next year, but we are truly in a remarkable preparation for next year. So let's start with Saturn in Sagittarius. Saturn is the planet that represents our connection to lessons, learning, karma, structure, responsibility, all of the aspects of being on the planet that are restrictive and structural are Saturn's domain. So it's where we learn our lessons. It's where we are told to be responsible. It's how we experience life as a sort of constriction. Saturn has a cousin, Jupiter.
Yeah.
I don't think they're literal cousins in mythology, but they are cousins in that they're both the social planets that represent our social experience, our global experience, the consciousness of us on this planet Earth, where Jupiter represents everything that's yummy and expansive and just filled with good fortune, abundance, and prosperity. But we're not talking about Jupiter right now. We're talking about Saturn. Saturn has been in the sign of Sagittarius for the last 2.5 years, and he is about to leave this sign literally in like a week or so. After 2.5 years in Sagittarius, and he's moving home to his home ruling sign of Capricorn. And put that on the shelf, everybody who's watching, because that's the importance of next year and the following year and the following year is hugely important because of Saturn's movement into Capricorn. But I'm going to really focus for a while on Saturn and Sagittarius because we are seeing great evidence in the media right here, right now, of the power of this placement.
Okay.
Saturn teaches. So anything that's about, I'm learning a lesson, is his domain. Sagittarius is the mansion, the archetype of higher truth. There's like, if you read horoscopes, which is not astrology, but if you read them, they say, oh, Sagittarians are blunt. They'll speak fast and say whatever's on their mind, whether it's hurtful or not. Well, the reason why that perception exists is because the archetype of Sagittarius is all about what's true, what's real, what would be visible if we lived in a world that was transparent.
Okay.
Right? Saturn, as he leaves a sign, will energetically cram lots and lots of lessons into what that sign's syllabus was all about, because he's saying to us, okay, guys, I'm leaving. This course is over, and you didn't learn this, 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 and so I'm going to cram it in these last months, weeks, and now days of me being me, Saturn, being in this sign of Sagittarius. And Sagittarius, one of the monikers or watchwords of Sagittarius might be transparency. And since it's karmic lessons, it's like you don't get to get away with anything. And have you noticed in the media in the last month or two, no one is getting away with anything? Well, depending on your politics, you might think that some people are getting away with stuff that they ought not be getting away with. But, you know, when left, right, and center, more and more people are being revealed for being sexual predators and behaving inappropriately in behind closed doors. Sagittarius says there are no closed doors. Nothing you've done behind closed doors is going to be left hidden while Saturn is getting ready to leave Sagittarius. And lo and behold, it's like every time we turn around, like I'm just waiting for like someone to come on and said, well, Mr. Rogers was like what? That person? That person? So lots of exposure for things that we would prefer to keep hidden. So let's translate that to you and I and all of us watching, that all of us have some relationship to the things about who we are and how we've been and the choices that we're making, that if we could, we would keep hidden. And we don't get to do that. We don't get to do that anymore with Saturn getting ready to leave Sagittarius. Now, if you're a person of consciousness, we do this willingly. We say, okay, bring it on. Bring it on. I am willing to release every shadowy, hidden aspect of myself that troubles me or troubles other people. And this is the time to sort of say, okay, what do I... Like my favorite prayer, Michael, is universe, have anything and everything come up that needs to come up in order for me to heal it so that I can step into my life purpose more powerfully. Don't say that prayer unless you're ready.
So, Michael, it's fascinating because there's something in me that I thought I had healed or worked on significantly for a long period of my life that over about the last 10 days or so has been roaring its ugly head, and I thought it was gone. And I'm taking deep breaths this morning and I'm going, what in the world? You were healed. And I'm like, all right, if you're not healed, I better start writing about this and getting this out, because what in the hell is this doing being back here?
I love it. In the words of a pal, colleague, and friend of mine, woohoo!
Well
So
put.
right. So this is perfect because you just articulated something that I'm sure dozens and dozens of the people who are going to be attracted to watching this video will have to say, "Oh, me too." Um, we are who we are, right? In life, and if like I sometimes will say to people, like, if you don't know who you are by now, I can't help you. Like, I'm not here to help you figure out
Mhm.
who you are. I'm here to take you to the next level, to help you get to the next level. I can usher people in. Um, and what I'm setting the stage to articulate is this idea that the wounds we have, the patterns that we enact, and the challenges that we face, they're pretty articulated. Like, they're definitive. Like, for me, it's always going to be being impatient
Mhm.
and authoritative. Like, in the darkness of my shadow, it's like, if I can shame and humiliate you along the way, I will. Now, I don't act out in that anymore, at least to the best of my ability, but it's still, the impulse is still in there, that because of the childhood I had, the protection that I gave myself was, if you beat me up, brother David, I will humiliate you by being smarter and, better than you. Okay, so that pattern still lives inside me and is always wanting to be healed. So whatever this pattern is that you're referring to, though you may have done tremendous amount of work on it, it still exists as a part of you
Mhm.
that wants healing. And you won't be done with that until you've taken your very last breath, because I know you've taken a few last breaths extra,
Yes.
right? So trust that the work that you did
Mhm.
was done. Appreciate that there's always another revisit, and Saturn in Sagittarius is going to say, revisit that corner. And then allow yourself to go back and know that you can get, like, if this is your healed consciousness, and that's beautiful, why not do a little more?
Mhm.
Just by revisiting it and saying, okay, not only do you know where that wounded consciousness lives in you, Michael, you also know how to heal it because you've already done so. I spent time with somebody the other night who said to me, like, I said, "Oh, I'm so glad you came over because I know you've been very busy." And he said to me, "Well, I didn't want you to get mad because you've gotten mad at me before."
Aha.
And I was like, "Oh, yes." And I apologized. I was impatient with you. You know what I mean? So my impatience, he was referring to me getting impatient and acting out from that impatience. So a year or so ago, I acted out on that impatience. And today, I am less likely to act out on that impatience. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to feel it
Mhm.
and then choose to not act on it, because I've learned how to contain that discomfort that shows up as impatience that causes me to want to lash out because I'm feeling hurt. And so there's always more room to heal deeper.
There's an important word that you use there. Two words. You said feel it. And one of the words that you talk about in your work, and it's something I'm experiencing now with this, what's going on, is a charge. When you feel a charge behind something.
Yes. I like to use an image of a container
Mhm.
to help people understand how this works. So if the container is the container of you, and so I make like an image. So if this is the size of the container of me,
Yep.
I live inside this container and it's about a foot in diameter, and I get a charge, and that charge is bigger than the container, then I'm going to act from that charge. I'm going to lash out because suddenly all that's true is the charge.
Wow. Yeah.
And then I got to act and sort of, and then I'm going to hurt your feelings. Some people do this and they turn it inward and they hurt themselves more than another. I'm not that guy. I'm the guy who hurts you. Oh, well.
And I'm the
So,
me guy. I firmly say, oh, Michael, you're in for it. And I don't mean Michael Lennox in this case.
ah, got it. So, if we do work on ourselves and we do writing, we do dream work, and maybe we do some therapy if therapy is called for, we do some workshops, we do some this, we do some that, we do some exercise and breathing and yoga, and our container gets bigger.
Mhm.
Now I'm a bigger container in my consciousness. Now I still get charged. And guess what? By the very same things that charged me yesterday will charge me today. Now the difference is I'm bigger, a little bigger than the screen there. I'm bigger in my consciousness. So now the charge is big, but it happens inside me. It's contained by me. And now I can be in the witness and I go, oh, look, I'm charged. How am I going to be with this charge? Am I going to act? Am I going to behave? Am I going to write an email from this place? So there's an example. I get charged by customers, clients, people who send me emails around customer service challenges that they have, and then I get charged by it. Now, 5 years ago, I might write back from that place of being charged. And guess what? I just lost a customer. Today, I don't do that. I wait. I still get charged, but I don't push send until I've crafted a response, not from the charge, but from my larger container self. Saturn in Sagittarius is standing at the front of the classroom saying, this is your opportunity. I'm going to throw a bunch of lessons at you. Get this down, because guess what? In a minute, I'm moving into Capricorn, and we're in for a couple of years of even greater challenges. When people say, when's it going to stop? I say, when you're dead. It's not getting any easier for any of us in this world gone mad. The world is definitely headed for more madness. Sorry. Our job, though, is to clean and clear up our consciousness, our individual experience of our own madness, so that when we get charged, we don't have to act and behave. When the world is charged, we don't have to react and behave from that charge.
What's the importance of, I talked about, I like to write things down. I'm huge into both automatic writing and also journaling, getting this stuff out on paper. What's the importance of getting it out or shredding it, or even right now, let's talk fire and burning it?
Okay, so inside the thinking mind, thought is circuitous. It loops. And it loops, and it loops, and it loops, and it will never stop looping. That's the nature of how the mind works. Writing is linear. So even just in the idea of binary code, that everything is either a 1 or a 0, thought in the mind is a circular experience of 0. You write it down, it becomes linear. It's a complete paradigmic, I don't know if that's a word, opposite to the looping thought, where it's going to challenge you and cause suffering in its constancy and its looping and its never ending. Once we write it, we've given it form. It's now out of us. It will open up space inside your mental and therefore also emotional experience, so that you can have new thoughts and new ideas. Now, they may come back the next day, in which case you might have to pick up the tool of writing again. But in terms of having a more serene experience on a Tuesday, anything that you write out has now left your mind and freeing up inner consciousness space. Now, the fire piece is a ritual. Let me say this about ritual. The unconscious mind, that's the greater part of us, does not know the difference between something that we would call real or actual and something that is ritualized. And burning is a symbolic transformation. Well, it's also a literal transformation, because if you take a piece of paper and you burn it, we are transforming it from the form of paper into ashy carbon molecules. And that tells our unconscious mind that this thing we've written, this consciousness that we've pulled out of our mind and made into form, is something we are done with. Burning it says we're done, we're transforming it. I love ritual. I'll do this. I haven't done this in a while because I don't think I've needed to, but I've done plenty, and I'll direct people to do this. Get an ashtray, get a candle, and get some paper. And if you have a thought or a relationship or a circumstance or a situation that you want to be free with, write it down, burn it in, and do that all day long if you have to. Do it again, and then again, and then again, and then again. There's an infinite number of times you can ask your consciousness to be done with something, but the writing gets it out of your mind, the burning transforms it, and then you can do something fun with the ashes later as another ritual.
Very, very cool. Thank you so much for sharing. I think that's going to be very helpful for people. What else do we need to know about Saturn in Sagittarius, or this time period that's so interesting? And well, I don't usually with Mercury like to say duck and cover, but it really is a challenging time.
Well, there is a rare and fascinating participation in Saturn's what's called egress. Egress is leaving a sign, ingress is entering a sign. There's a fascinating participation of Saturn leaving Sagittarius and Mercury going retrograde in Sagittarius. I like to anthropomorphize the planets. It's the best way to understand their consciousness and how how it lives inside each of us as a kind of a fertile, imaginative being that we are. If Saturn is the teacher in us and Mercury is the mind in us, you can think of Saturn the teacher having a teaching assistant, Mercury. And Saturn the teacher is saying, oh, we've got a lot to cover, but I'm leaving. Then the teaching assistant says, I'll stick around. I'll actually go retrograde. So I'll work with people and I'll help. So this Mercury retrograde that we're in right now, in fact, today, which is December 12th, is the day that the Sun and Mercury are together. It's the exact halfway point between the beginning of the Mercury retrograde and the end of the Mercury retrograde. That 21-day period has about 10 more days left. So on the 22nd of December, Mercury will turn around and go direct again. So this bumpy process of the mind turning within is actually the consciousness of the answered prayer that I uttered earlier. Allow anything to come up that needs to come up to be healed and transformed in order for me to meet the destiny of this life more fully. Mercury turning within says, okay, let's have at it. Let's write. Mercury in Sagittarius, a fire sign. Perfect time to be writing and burning, writing and burning, writing and burning. The question I always get asked, Michael, anytime I speak about anything is, well, how do I do that? Great question. I don't mean to be mocking with my tone. So I apologize.
You said it, so I don't have to. It's perfect.
Right. If you did nothing else for the rest of this, from whenever you've watched this video till December 22nd, when Mercury turns direct, if you did nothing else but took a journal or a pile of paper and wrote down on it in as free, expressive way as you could, everything you hate about your life or your consciousness or your experience or your neighbors or your girlfriend or your husband or your children or your job, and just burn it. Burn it. Burn it. You would be doing powerful and profound work, declaring to the universe that you're willing to take all of those dark, ugly, hateful thoughts of separation, lack, limitation, and drudgery, and transforming them so that you can meet the world on its own terms as Saturn moves into Capricorn and things get a little crazier.
All right. So with that said, we have Mercury in retrograde. For those, myself among it, I'm a newbie to this whole thing. What does that mean? How is that showing itself? And why do I keep on breaking my little pinky toe on furniture, Michael?
That's very funny. All right. Well, let's start with retrograde itself. If you want to see this in action, go to Google and Google something like animation describing retrograde motion.
Yeah.
It's a physical property that happens when two bodies are moving through space at different speeds. From the perspective of one of those moving bodies, the other moving body will look for a moment like it's moving backwards. So you've got the Earth moving through space, and then you've got Mercury moving through space a little faster, and then for a moment, it just appears from our perspective that it's backward motion. This happens when you're driving in a car and you're in the passenger seat and you look out at the cars that are passing you by. There's a little moment where it's like, what? Oh, it looks like it's moving backwards.
Train stations.
Absolutely. It's absolutely. That's a perfect place where it occurs. It's an optical illusion, so it's not literal, but it is a shift in the energy dynamic between the two moving bodies. And with Mercury, it's like clockwork. Every 88 days, for 21 days, Mercury appears to be moving backwards. So we anthropomorphize this experience. We give it an archetypal interpretation. And here's that. Mercury is our mind. It's our thoughts. It's our writing, our communication, our thought patterns, our interactions with not only the world and other people, but within our own experience of mind. There's a lot of data we collect day in and day out. Everything we have thought and expressed is carried by Mercury and his movement. Every once in a while, he stops and he says, wait, too much stuff. I need to drop some of this. I need to process everything. I need to discard everything that's extraneous, make permanent the thoughts and consciousness that is important, and then I'll be able to move on clearly, like with a clear mind. And that's what's occurring during the retrograde portion, that 21 days. It's no different than what happens to the brain during REM sleep. When we go into dreamland, the brain is clearing itself off of all of the stuff it's experienced during the day so that we can wake up the next day clear-headed instead of befuddled with all that data.
So we could call that overwhelm then?
Yes, absolutely. Let's call it overwhelm. So the bumping into furniture piece is my sort of charming, clever way of describing why it feels so challenging when Mercury is retrograde, because Mercury, the mind, is our navigator. He's the guy who's watching, going, ooh, watch out for that. Oh, the truck is coming. Don't cross the street. Ooh, it's cold out. Put on a sweater. That's Mercury's job. Now, we overemphasize our minds and our thoughts, and we think, oh, I am my thoughts, and we're not, but we think we are. But in its purest function, the mind is there to keep us safe, to navigate our way, to show us where we're going so we don't trip on anything. So during the 21 days of Mercury retrograde, the mind is turned within. He's not looking where he's going. That's why we bump into the furniture. So, I don't think that I've said this many, many times, I don't think that, clients are late more during retrograde, or they cancel more during retrograde. Clients are late and they cancel all the time. I think it feels different when Mercury's retrograde because we're discombobulated in how we're moving about. Now, the value of a Mercury retrograde is tremendous if you step up to the process of what's happening by the mind turning within. So let's just say it this way. You've been using journaling as a example of a tool to clear the mind and maybe come to some aha or awareness process by writing stuff out, because that can happen. That's a function of writing. Say you sit down with your journal on any given day and you have a good experience of self-actualization and awareness and aha moments. It's great. When Mercury's retrograde and the mind planet out there is turned within, that means the mind planet inside my consciousness is turned within. There's a deeper awareness place that's available to us. And right now, because Mercury is retrograde and we're in that deep inner mental, intellectual awareness place, and he has met up with Saturn, the teacher, there's marching orders have come from what Saturn wants us to know and learn. And so there's this experience of going within that has Saturn's gravitas attached to it. And then Mercury on the 22nd will go retrograde and we'll be sort of done with that process. And then on January, I think 11th or so, Saturn has already moved into Capricorn. Mercury will move into Capricorn and they will meet up again for the third and final time. And this whole process will sort of be complete. And we have between now and then to do this deep inner work of cleaning out and clearing out the consciousness, thoughts, interactions, relationships, reactivities, and charges that keep us from being more aligned and centered in our hearts, so that we can respond to the world with a greater opening and more, more love. Because it's going to get harder and harder to do that as the world gets madder and madder.
So I guess a couple questions based on this. The first would be, how important is it to do this now, and to do this to set the stage for the year or years or even 2.5 years to come?
I want to answer that question by qualifying it first, because
Sure.
There's just nothing worse than setting people up to feel like they've missed the boat.
Thank you.
It's not possible. You can't miss the boat, and there's no opportunity that's available today that isn't also available tomorrow. That just doesn't exist. It doesn't work that way. So you can't miss anything. However, yeah, you can do more. Like, if you show up to class and take good notes and study, you're going to get an A on the exam. If you miss a little class, you don't take great notes, and you don't study as much, you might get a B or a C. You're still going to pass. You haven't missed anything, really, but you certainly could have a greater sense of preparation with regard to the information that's being downloaded than not. So I want to qualify it by saying, relax. If you're listening to this, you stumbled upon this, and it's March of 2018, and you're like, oh my God, I missed it, I'm failing. It's like, no, you're not. That being said, I, as someone who stays on top of this consciousness day in and day out, because I have a devoted spiritual practice, I am not only the hair club, president, I'm also a member, although this is my real hair. It's an analogy, folks. And you'd have to be of a certain age and grow up back east. That was a television commercial with this guy who had
Style Sperling or something.
Yes, yeah, right. A full head of hair, and you see a picture of him at the end of the commercial that shows that he was bald. He's wearing this, fake hair. Anyway, so I would declare this period of time and this Mercury retrograde as, let's say, an 8.5 out of 10 on the scale of importance. It's important. It's important because of stuff that's happening astrologically and energetically that's still a couple of years away. But I'm talking about something that happens in late 2019 and early 2020, when Pluto, the planet of the Lord of the Underworld, and all sorts of change and alchemy at a profound level, Pluto, will meet up with Saturn in Capricorn. Structure, responsibility, life lessons, restriction, tripping over, the tasks that we are assigned. And then Jupiter, the expansion planet, who makes everything bigger and more over the top than ever. They're all going to gather in the sign of Capricorn in such a way that I think we're building towards a level of global chaos that we haven't yet even seen, though it's already very chaotic. And each of us has a responsibility to meet the world's chaos and madness with a level of grounded, compassionate willingness to be in this world gone mad and say, I am not going to be moved by this, but I'm going to hold space that we rise up in vibration, in perspective, in our beholding of it, so that we can change the minds and hearts of more people on the planet and eventually move ourselves towards the possibility of peace for humanity, which I think, Michael, I believe in.
Woohoo! So, Michael, what do we do then going into the new year? What else do we need to know about this time period? And actions are important. Or like you said, if you're hearing this a little bit later down the road, you're already into 2018, where do we go?
Okay. So let's talk about fire to earth.
Yeah.
One of the big shifts and changes that comes now and as part of 2018 is you've got two major planets moving from fire signs into earth signs. I'm going to refer to this as a good news perspective for the people who are watching this who found what I just said about how to be in a chaotic world. For those of you who found that inspiring, I'm speaking to you now. Saturn has been in Sagittarius, the fire sign of transparency and truth. Moving into Capricorn, earth sign of dedication, higher vantage point, structure, social structure. Uranus, the planet that is the lightning flash guy, the awakener, the great awakener, he's moving from the fire sign of Aries into the earth sign of Taurus. On one hand, I don't know how to describe what that means for next year and the year after. I don't, because I'm just not that good at seeing things that don't exist. So I don't know exactly how that's going to play out, but I know that the sensation is going to change. The sensation of fire feels like change, transformation. Things are happening and changing inside of us. The sensation of earth is grounded and form related to actually what's in the world of form. I can speak from my own perspective as a teacher in the world that, and I think I said this earlier, that recently and in this calendar year of 2017, personally, I have had a lot of upgrades in the instrument that is my body. There's been a lot of change. This is not about what I do out in the world. It's what happens in that chair. In that chair, there's been a lot of change in how I experience my personal expression of energy that is these bodies. And that's been the lion's share of what my personal experience has been. Though I traveled a lot this year, I taught a lot, I had a new book come out, so it's not like there weren't things happening outside in the world of form. There were, but it was 10 years from now and we were sitting on the porch rocking chairs and drinking tea, I would be saying, oh yeah, 2017, a lot changed, change on the inside of my consciousness, because I was getting ready to create new forms, earth. I am starting to teach curriculum next year in a way that I've never taught before. It's going to all be available on phone and computer and Zoom and reaching the world in a very different way than I have in the past, and that's form. I changed how I operate in here so that I could be ready to move out into the world of form differently. All of us are having some experience of fiery preparation so that we can move out into the world of form differently. The first iteration of that is right now. Saturn moving into Capricorn. That's from fire to earth. Change into form. And that's permanent. That is, there's no retrograde that's going to bring Saturn back into Sagittarius. We're done with that as of December 19th, which is in about a week from now. And we've got 2.5 years of Saturn in Capricorn. Saturn tells us how and where we are to be responsible. So Saturn in the earth sign of Capricorn is going to be demanding that people find the form that they want to plug into with regard to what they learned about themselves by virtue of Saturn in Sagittarius. Saturn in Sagittarius revealed through transparency things about the world we didn't know before, or we had our eyes closed to, or were pretending wasn't true. Now, Saturn in Capricorn says, take action. So that's going to be something that all of us are going to be contending with during this upcoming year. 2017 is going to be a year of taking action. a demand, a sense of responsibility to take action now that we know the truth about our world. So if you're a political junkie and you're watching this video, you understand that everything we learned about what's really going on, you can rail about it on Facebook if you're so moved, but next year you better be taking action or you're going to feel some suffering. Action is key. Now, Uranus doesn't move into Taurus until the springtime of this upcoming year, and he'll retrograde back into Aries once again. So in like mid-May is when Uranus moves out of Aries into Taurus. An example of Uranus moving into Aries a bunch of years ago was, I think it was even the same week or month that he first moved into Aries a bunch of years ago, was the month that that oil rig blew up in the Gulf of Mexico. Well, us astrologers, we had a blast with that. Oh yeah, we were like, oh my God, that's so Uranus in Aries. Aries, the startup fire sign, created a global fire that Saturn in Sagittarius used to say, look, folks, do you see how it really is? Do you see how wake up, says Uranus, and Saturn says, wake up to what? To recognizing that our dependence on fossil fuels is causing great challenge and damage to our planet. In tandem, they work together. Well, now they're in tandem again, moving into the world of form. So Uranus in Taurus is again going to put an emphasis on what's happening in the world of form. Saturn says take action. Uranus is going to wake us up to what's, Taurus is all about. He's the first earth sign. So he's very much about, what does life feel like? What does the body feel like? What does it feel like to be in a body on a planet? And there's going to be wake-up calls around that are more grounded and hopefully in tandem with Saturn's need and demand for action, will help guide people into directions. Now, I'm not saying you got to be an activist. I'm not an activist. That's not what I do. I teach individuals how to have a more conscious experience of themselves. And then if you are led towards activism, hooray for you. Not everybody has to be an activist, but everybody has to be consciously aware of why they're here. And Taurus being an earth sign that invented the body, Uranus is going to help wake you up to why you're in a body. Saturn in Capricorn will say, well, if you're not doing something about it, I'm going to trip you up. I'm gonna cause lessons and suffering about what it's like to not take action about why you're in a body. And that's, I think, the Earth sort of focus. And then, around about November or so, Uranus will move back into the end degrees of Aries, causing more fire and change. And then by the time I think we get into spring of 2019, he's done with Aries for 80, 90 years, and in Taurus for the next decade.
So is there relief coming for us?
Never.
No. Is there? You talk about starting your programs up this coming year, and Zoom and getting all of this stuff out there and having online classes. Are there things that we get to do now to surf or work with these energies to help bring them about in the new year?
God, that's the question, isn't it? At the end of the day, nothing is more important at the individual level than having some sort of practice that wakes you up to remembering who you really are as an individualized expression of the universe that invented you. Nothing. Not what you do, not what you make, not who you make love to, but how you within your own body feel connected to something greater. The reason I'm doing curriculum is to teach people how to do that, how to have a practice. That's all it is. It's how to have a daily practice. Not how to take over the world, how to make $1 million, how to attract your soulmate. There's lots of people who are doing that and teaching that, and God bless them. My thought is, if you don't have some daily practice that connects you to your relationship, your
Mm-hmm.
individualized relationship with how you feel connected to the universe, then why bother learning how to make $1 million if your machine that creates $1 million is something you don't even know how to work with? The challenge with it is nobody has the same machine. So you have to figure it out for yourself. Now, if you're attracted to me as a teacher, there's a good chance that how I do it and how I teach it is right for you, or you wouldn't be drawn towards me. And if you come towards me and it works for a minute, and then you get sort of bored of me or annoyed with me, move on, because there's tons of teachers out there. And we are always drawn to the very right and the very perfect sort of inspiration at any given moment. And one should never get too attached to one's teachers. But the point is that what we're to learn is, how do you, one, feel connected to the universe? For some people, it's going to be mental and mindful meditation and prayerful thoughts. Some people, it's going to be, learning how to write out their chaos so that they can have a clearer mind. For other people, it's going to be remembering that physical fitness is part of their overall fitness. For me, I believe that everything connects to the breath. And if you don't have a profound relationship with your breath, then you're doing it wrong anyway. Even if how you get connected to the breath is through yoga or through looking at a candle or taking a walk around the block, taking a walk around the block and looking up is a great way to connect to the universe. But you can bet your bottom dollar that what's really happening inside your body is you're breathing deeper. So for me, breath is key. So I guess I don't know if I've even answered your question, Michael. I guess the point is, connecting to how you as an individual best feel connected to something greater energetically, that is this universe that invented you, is key.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Jessica would always want me to ask before the end a question for parents and their kids. How do we help our kids at this time period?
Kids are magnificent divers into process. They don't question because they're so imaginative. When I used to teach acting, my first summer ever teaching acting, to kids, I remember the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds was the easiest class. I would get a chair, I would sit down, I'd say, be a tree, okay, be a dog. I would just rest, at the end of the day. Okay, be a house. And they just did it. So one thing to remember is all of this work is using the imagination, right? And so kids are very responsive to ritual because they are inherently more organically connected to their imagination than you think. So the first thing I would say to parents is respect the emotional intelligence of your children. It's probably greater than yours. I was sent a bunch of videos from a client of mine that I work with on a regular basis. She lives in Jordan. She's a wonderful, conscious woman, has 2 kids. She's raising them as a single mom. And she sat them down in front of the fire and had them write out forgiveness.
Wow.
Stuff and throw them into the fire. And these kids, I've seen the videos. They came up with some stuff that matched any adult working in a retreat I ever facilitated. From really taking that in, they got it. They got what it was to write out, the kids that they were angry at, or kids that were angry with them, and having these heartfelt expressed wishes of, I wish to forgive everyone I dislike. That came from them, not from her. So the first thing I would say to a parent is, if you respond to a process, your kids are going to respond to that process. And so if you're journaling and having something happen for you, get your kids a journal. Sit down with your kids and say, we're going to write things that we're grateful for. Turn your kids onto the gratitude process. You think that they won't respond to that? They respond to that hugely. And now, kids, write things that you don't want to have in your life anymore. Believe me, they'll know what that is. And then burn them in the fire or with a candle. The kids will respond to that ritual.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! Yeah, I would say to parents in a very general way, don't be afraid to be playful with your children around the processes connected with being conscious.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So where can people go to find out more, to find your upcoming programs, your daily astro alert, everything?
MichaelLennox.com is definitely the best place to connect with me. You can go to MichaelLennox.com and join my newsletter right at the top right-hand side of the homepage, and that will get you my new moon and my full moon articles twice a month and announcements about anything and everything that I'm doing in the coming year, including that. You will also see a button to the Daily Astro Alert, which is a daily description, lengthy and detailed, about the changing astrology of every day, that there's an exchange for that. Right now it's $8 a month. If you sign up in the next month or two, it'll stay $8, but it's going up to $10 next year. So this would be a good time to sign up for that, because it'll be $8 for life. If you sign up and register for that now. I also am very active on Facebook and Instagram. So my Facebook is just Michael Lennox, or Perchance to Dream, or both. Michael Lennox, Perchance to Dream on Facebook. And I've been having a lot of fun on Instagram lately, which is Dr. Lennox Dreams, DrLennox Dreams, where I have about every 3 or 4 days I do posts with beautiful imagery, and I do my live videos on both Facebook and Instagram about every 2 weeks, which I also announce through my newsletter, which you can be placed on if you go to michaellennox.com.
Fantastic. So if you didn't catch michaellennox.com or any of the other links, come on over to inspirenationshow.com and we'll get you over to michaellennox.com. So Michael, any last words of wisdom you want to share before maybe we can dive into a little fun breath work?
Ooh, that's a great idea. Yeah, let's do the breath work. No, last words are, have at it. This is a beautiful month to dive in, take some risks with what you're willing to tell yourself as truth. Mm-hmm. I think that Mercury is the mind, so writing is a great tool for the month of December. Great opportunity to dive in mentally to anything you want to explore. And if nothing else, just write free form. Just, get the page, the pen, and just have at it and say, what would you have me think about? What would you have me write? And then just let it flow and see what comes. You might be surprised at the stuff that comes up.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
That's music to my heart. So what kind of breath work could you share with us, or would you mind sharing the...
No, let's do the Ein Soft breath.
Thank you.
All right, so... And I would encourage anybody who finds this interesting to look it up. Ein is E-I-N, Sof is S-O-P-H. There's lots of articles around for the Ein Sof consciousness through Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah. So we aspirate the breath, and this is where the sound comes in. Mm-hmm. If you take breath without aspiration, it's just breathing in and out. To aspirate the breath is to add a little sound to it. If you've ever done yoga and explored the Ujjayi breath, that's an aspirated breath. There's like an engagement of the throat in that breath that has sound associated with it. This is like that, though it's not specifically that. But if you've done that and you're watching this video, I'm speaking in that direction. So we do Ein mm-hmm. on the in-breath, and it's a triphthong, Ein. And then we do Sof on the out-breath. One of the things that this breath does by adding these sounds mm-hmm. is it connects you to the spiral. Everything in our world and our universe spirals. The solar system is a spiral. The galaxy is a spiral. The solar system isn't just a round circle that comes back statically around itself. It's spiraling through space. Everything on the planet spirals. If you look at stop motion, or is it stop motion photography? You watch a flower mm-hmm. unfold. It spirals open. Shell. Everything's a spiral, guys. So is breath. When we are breathing freely and consciously, Though you can't see it, you are causing air to spiral. Opera singers know this because they use that spiral to make sound. They're breathing in light, and then they're resonating out light in a spiral kind of motion. And the triphthong of ein, makes the mouth open up so that the breath naturally will begin right at the tip here,
Yeah.
and spiral in.
Wow.
And then you with the S of Soph, but you make the S with the little tip of your tongue hitting the back of your teeth, and that closes it. And then you open the mouth and a so, and then the f closes it again. It's knitting. You're knitting with each breath with the Ein Sof. And what the words are doing, or the sounds are doing, is getting you connected with the warp and the woof of the weaving, or the needles of the knitting, or the tying of the knotting. So that's the preamble. And so maybe I'll just do this for a few moments, a minute or so, on camera. Oh, God. And
Thank you,
you can
Michael.
either join with me or watch or whatever. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna let my face do what my face does, which is a little bit of distortion and kookiness. Michael, thank you for putting me on the spot this way. I'm really grateful. I mean that, even though my tone is implying that I'm horrified. But it's a good thing. It's a good thing. All right. So what I just did there was I did a handful of silent breaths, and then I made some tone and sound. Oh, are you crying?
Beautiful, Michael.
Thank you. And I made some sounds. It's not usually that pretty when I'm opening up at first. I'm also using sound in a way that's awkward but purposeful. Anyway, that's a little Ein soft breath.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael, so much for sharing the whole interview and for sharing this practice with us. I want to play with this. That's powerful, and I could hear universe, source.
Yep, it's powerful. Have at it.
Woo!
Woo!
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Michael. As always, it has been a true pleasure, an honor, and you are helping us to make it through this time period and bridge forward into what sounds like, dare I say, exciting times to come.
Yeah, yes, dear, yes, good, yes.
Thank you so much. So, for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get your daily Astro Alert, and dive in on the inside today and shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you so much, Michael.
That was a pleasure. Always, Michael. Anytime, anytime, any subject. Truly, truly, truly. Anytime.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!